Hey everyone, and welcome back to the channel. Have you ever wondered how a single day of battle could completely redraw the map of Europe and define an entire era? Well, that's exactly what happened on June 18, 1815, on a rain-soaked field in modern-day Belgium. This is the story of the Battle of Waterloo, the final epic showdown that ended the reign of one of history's most brilliant and controversial figures, Napoleon Bonaparte. So how did we get here? Just a year earlier, Napoleon, the Emperor of the French, had been defeated and exiled to the tiny island of Elba. The great powers of Europe, Britain, Prussia, Austria, and Russia breathed a sigh of relief. They thought the decades of war were finally over, but they underestimated Napoleon's ambition. In March 1815, he escaped from Elba, landed in France, and began a march to Paris. The soldiers sent to stop him, who had once fought under his command, couldn't resist his charisma. They flocked to his banner, chanting Vive l'Empereur. King Louis XVIII fled, and in a period known as the 100 Days, Napoleon was Emperor of France once again. Europe was thrown into a panic. The coalition against him reformed immediately. They declared him an outlaw and began mobilizing their armies to invade France and depose him for good. Napoleon knew he couldn't wait for them to unite and invade France. His only chance was to strike first. His strategy was classic Napoleon: divide and conquer. He planned to drive his army like a wedge between Wellington and Blucher, defeat them one at a time before they could join forces, and then force the coalition to negotiate peace. It was a bold, high-stakes gamble. On June 15th, Napoleon crossed the border into Belgium, catching the Allies by surprise. The next day, June 16th, he put his plan into action. He engaged Blucher's Prussians at the Battle of Ligny, while his subordinate Marshal Ney was sent to hold off Wellington's advance guard at a crucial crossroads called Quatre-Bras. This was a tactical victory, but it wasn't the decisive, crushing blow he needed. Crucially, the Prussians, though battered, were not broken. Instead of retreating eastward back towards Prussia, as Napoleon expected, Blucher made a game-changing decision. He retreated north parallel to Wellington's army, determined to link up with his British ally as soon as possible. This was a move Napoleon completely failed to anticipate. Meanwhile, at Quatre-Bras, Marshal Ney's attacks on Wellington's forces were costly and ultimately unsuccessful. Wellington held his ground, but upon hearing of the Prussian retreat from Ligny, he knew his position was exposed. He decided to pull his own army back to a defensive position he had scouted months before. A low ridge south of the village of Waterloo was the perfect spot for a defensive battle. And so, on the night of June 17th, the stage was set. Napoleon, believing the Prussians were out of the picture, sent a third of his army under Marshal Grouchy to chase them down. He then turned his full attention to what he thought was his final obstacle: Wellington. Torrential rain turned the fields into a sea of mud, making movement incredibly difficult for men, horses, and cannons. This rain would have a huge impact on the battle to come. On the morning of June 18th, the sun rose over a muddy, waterlogged landscape. Napoleon was confident. He outnumbered Wellington and believed his troops were superior. He delayed the start of the battle for several hours, waiting for the ground to dry so he could effectively maneuver his artillery. This delay would prove to be a fatal mistake. These fortified farms would become magnets for the French attacks, drawing in thousands of troops and becoming scenes of horrific close-quarters fighting. Wellington's entire plan depended on holding out long enough for Blucher's Prussians to arrive. What was meant to be a small skirmish quickly escalated into a brutal, all-day struggle that sucked in more and more French troops. The British and German defenders held on with incredible tenacity, a battle within a battle that protected Wellington's right flank. Next, Napoleon ordered a massive infantry assault on Wellington's center left. However, the British cavalry, caught up in the thrill of the chase, charged too far and were themselves cut to pieces by French lancers. Both sides had suffered heavily. As the afternoon wore on, Napoleon received startling news. Troops were spotted massing to his east. Was it Marshal Grouchy returning with reinforcements? No, it was the Prussians. Blucher had kept his promise. Napoleon was now in a race against time. He had to break Wellington's army before the full weight of the Prussian force could crash into his flank. He ordered Marshal Ney to capture the central farmhouse, La Haye-Sainte. This was the key to Wellington's entire position. Simultaneously, believing Wellington's line was wavering, Ney launched one of the most famous and disastrous cavalry charges in military history. Without infantry or artillery support, thousands of French heavy cavalrymen charged up the muddy slope again and again against the British infantry squares. These squares were like human fortresses, formations of men bristling with bayonets that cavalry could not break. The charges were heroic, but ultimately futile, and they exhausted Napoleon's elite cavalry for no gain. With the center of his line exposed, Wellington's position was desperate. He was running out of men, and his famous composure was beginning to fray. It was at this moment of crisis that he reportedly said, "Give me Knight, or give me Blucher." With the Prussians now heavily engaged on his right flank, Napoleon knew it was now or never. He committed his last reserve, the legendary Imperial Guard. They rose up and delivered a devastating volley at point-blank range. The unthinkable happened. The Imperial Guard faltered. They stopped. The French army attacked from two sides, and seeing its legendary guard defeated, completely disintegrated. The retreat turned into a rout. Napoleon himself was swept away in the chaos, narrowly escaping capture. The Battle of Waterloo was over. The 100 days were over. He abdicated for a second and final time, eventually surrendering to the British. This time, they took no chances. They exiled him to the remote, windswept island of St. Helena in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean, where he would die 6 years later. The Battle of Waterloo didn't just end Napoleon's career, it reshaped Europe. It's a story of strategy, courage, fatal mistakes, and incredible endurance. From Napoleon's fateful delay in the morning to the Prussians' crucial arrival, every moment mattered. Waterloo remains a powerful reminder of how history can turn on a single day. If you found this story as fascinating as I do, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more deep dives into history's most important moments.